So, a warm welcome to everyone, and I would also like to thank Dr. Rajesh for the great ecosystem that he has built. And just yeah. So, particularly, I was going to the website that you have and the kind of innovations that you spoke about. Uh, that does say the fact that there is a lot of impact that is potentially being created, and you all of you are AI developers, all of you are uh, potential AI scientists, and some of you are also doing great work. But it is my job, what I do as in I work with startups, is to help them and take their solutions out to the market, because building solutions is one thing and taking them out to the market is another challenge altogether. Before I do that, I would like to run this quick poll, and I would like to have a quick raise of hands. So there are two parts to this slide that you can see. One of which says AI can't replace doctors, the other one says AI will replace doctors. Let's have a quick raise of hands. How many of you think that AI can't replace doctors? And this goes out to all the students particularly. I want to hear your thoughts. How many of you feel that AI will eventually be able to replace the doctors? Why are so less people so hopeful about AI? Okay. So is there a third option? I mean, my bad, I just gave you two options. Right. So, as Dr. Atul has already said, reducing the doctor's burden, automating a lot of things that are happening, and look at things from a patient journey perspective as well as from a doctor's response to it. Like he was talking about the EMR thing, which again is a pain point that he already solved. Now have a look at this, and this is not, I am not saying this. There is a trained clinician, a surgeon who is also the global health lead for USAID. He has said that doctors will with AI will replace doctors without AI, and it is up to every one of you who is being present over here, the kind of solutions that you can make that does not think about replacing them, but it thinks about empowering the doctors, it thinks about augmenting their workflows, and it focuses on improving the lives of the doctors better day by day. So a bit about what I do and where I come from. So my name is Shantanu. I've come all the way from Delhi, and I'm born and brought up in Faridabad. Of course, Faridabad is also home to one of the biggest, largest hospitals, which is the Amrita Hospital. So my connect to the Amrita ecosystem stems from the place that I was born and brought up in. Now, in terms of NASSCOM COE, the institution that I'm a part of, it is a Digital India initiative by the Ministry of Electronics and IT in partnership with NASSCOM. Typically, what we are doing is that we are closing the gap that exists within the enterprises and the startups, and we are creating an environment that is conducive for collaborative innovation. What I mean, what I mean by that is that we enable opportunities for the startups to help them to bring them the clinical validation and to make those solutions scalable. So there are two important words which are there mentioned as a part of the symposium today, which is sustainable and affordable. I would like to add one more word, that is scalable. Because whenever we are building solutions, whether it is an AI solution or a robotic solution or a medical device, building it is one thing, but successfully scaling it, getting your first paid customer, or creating the first impact on ground in terms of a public healthcare deployment, and then keep on doing that scalably is a really big challenge. Because I've seen that happen, in my line of work that I work with startups. And to be honest, it is called an expert talk. I'm more of an enabler. I don't think I don't consider myself as an expert over here. I am learning things. In fact, I learned quite a lot of things which were really inspirational. particularly on the front targeting people with special needs. But what I will talk about more is from a perspective which is different on two aspects. One of which I've already said, that taking things from development to deployment. The other thing is that if there is any disease, whether or not if it is a cardiac disease or it's cancer, it equally affects everyone. So the idea is to bring in how innovation can play a key role. These are some of the providers and partners, the payer partners that we are working with. We are working with them to enable the deployment of solutions, to enable the deployment of AI solutions and various other innovations which have been successfully being scaled up, deployed, and clinically validated. Now, as I said, I will cover some case studies which are like real life case studies where these solutions are getting an impact. But before I do that, one of the key things is to look at the do's and don'ts. What are the key challenges? Suppose you have built an AI solution which you think is going to change the world. You go out into the market, you talk to the first few potential customers, and you hit roadblock after roadblock. You find that there are challenges arriving at you from different directions, and that's what happens. That's what I have seen happening to the most promising solutions that have been built in right in front of my eyes. So what I will do is I will share some of the challenges that typically someone like you might end up facing when they are looking to take their solution out to the market. Also, the possible mitigation strategies. The key word over here is possible mitigation, because what worked for me might not work for you, but it is a good starting point for you to look at addressing the problems that could come on board, right? So moving on to the first problem that is here is the integration with existing systems. Now each hospital, like Dr. Atul spoke about EMR, there are various kinds of software suites, there are various kinds of devices, systems in place in any healthcare setting. There are HIS systems, there are legacy medical imaging devices and whatnot. And if you are building an AI solution, suppose if you are looking to deploy an AI-led prescription digitization, then it is really important that you integrate with the HIS, and that too successfully. If you are building an AI solution that is working on any of the radiology-led modalities for any kind of disease diagnosis, then it is really important that you are able to integrate with all the medical devices, including the legacy one. And that's where I've seen problems occur so many times, because the communication, the integration is not done seamlessly. So what can you do? What can the options be? The first thing is to leverage protocols that are open communication protocols, interoperable mechanisms for the data flow. You can leverage the standards that are there already, global standards for working on various kinds of data flow. Also, one of the key things is complying with AVDM. Now, AVDM is, for those of you who are not aware, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, which is being run by the National Health Authority of India. It is like UPI of healthcare, wherein AVDM is building the integrated, they are building the backbone for the integrated digital healthcare ecosystem. So, in a layman's language, what it allows you to do is, if you are sitting anywhere in India and you have a healthcare facility, then you will be getting a unique healthcare ID for your facility. And if there is a patient that comes on board, that patient would be having a unique UHID which would be linked to his Aadhaar. And the entire patient journey will be mapped digitally, and it will be made available and accessible, of course, after ensuring the data privacy and all those compliances through the stack that AVDM is developing. So that is not only useful for the healthcare ecosystem as a whole, but particularly for the solution developers that are over here, the AI solution developers that are over here. It will also enable that you are complying with the law of the land, or the soon what is going to become the law of the land, where every healthcare institution, every AI application will be complying with it. So one of the ways is to apply for an integration sandbox of your solutions. The link is there. You can go in and you can apply, and there are various levels of integration over there: M1, M2, and M3. Depending upon the requirement, the kind of sandbox integration that is needed, you can apply for that and ensure that your solution becomes interoperable. Now, moving on to the next challenge, which we often face, is the trust deficit. Again, as I said, you have built a building solution, you take it out to the market, and it seems to work quite well. But then again, I am a clinician. If I am a clinician, I've spent so many years, perfecting my practice. I won't, like if an AI or any kind of algorithm tells me what to do, right? So the approach over there is, as I said in the first slide that I started with, is to look at empowering clinicians, look at augmenting their practices instead of taking AI backed autonomous decisions. AI is not supposed to take decisions. AI is supposed to support in taking decisions. So that is the approach which you should take whenever you are designing any kind of solutions. The other thing that you can do is to invite clinicians. So there is, like in your own fraternity, there are so many big and small hospitals and medical colleges. If you are trying to build a healthcare solution, it is really important for you to engage with them quite regularly. So, in fact, there are a lot of institutions that are already doing that. Recently, I had gone to Jodhpur, where there is IIT Jodhpur and AIIMS Jodhpur. So, what they have done is that they have created a comprehensive program where the students who are there from IIT Jodhpur who are building solution integrate with the young MBBS doctors who are coming into AIIMS Jodhpur. The idea over there is just to ensure that both the worlds are connected with each other right from the scratch. Instead of you build your solution and then you try to take it out to the market. The other thing which is really important, and I think all of you would be knowing about it, but I just want to emphasize it, is investing in clinical studies and regulatory compliances, because that is really important. When I say invest, spend time and resources in doing your clinical validation studies. Make sure they get published, and the people who come on board in your studies that you do, make them your brand ambassadors, make them your AI advocates, your evangelists. Because as a fraternity, if someone from my fraternity or someone who is also practicing doctors talks about a particular solution, and it is all the more likely that I am going to listen to his or her opinion, and based on that, it would help me in establishing my trust over these solutions. Moving on to the next challenge that generally startups face when they are looking out to venture out in the market is an end user mindset which is resistant to change, and that is a human behavior. If we get so used to working the way we are, that even if it's if a good solution comes our way, just because we are in our comfort zone, we don't want to venture out of it, and that sometimes ends up becoming a roadblock again. So over there, since it is a behavioral problem, it needs more time and more consultation and working proactively with your target audience, which in this case is the clinicians. What you can definitely do is creating an awareness that whatever solution you are developing, it is going to help the clinician in making their tasks less tedious, in probably automating some of the tedious tasks. So a clinician can focus on the tasks that are more critical, that would not only reduce the turnaround time, it would also ensure better productivity for them, and it would also ensure that they can comply with all the compliances and have a better interaction with the entire treatment pathway. Apart from that is as I said, focusing on clinical augmentation rather than trying to replace things. I started out by the replacement slide just to ensure to bring in the dilemma and what the people start with and what they should end up doing. Then is user intuitiveness. All of you are using smartphones these days. Now there is Apple sells its smartphones for such a high cost. Of course, one of the things is that it ends up becoming a status symbol, but much before that, when Apple came out, started coming up with this products, the major aspect which they had, the major selling point which they had was the design and the intuitive interface. If there is any solution that is being handed out to you personally, and if it is clunky, if it is not easy to use, then you, even being technologists, will not be using it. Now imagine a clinician who is quite separated from the technology world, but we are expecting them to use that solution. So the recommendation from my side would be that as engineers we think about solving the problems and sometimes we stay restricted to it. The idea is to go beyond that and maybe spend as much time, if not more, on the user aspects of things, on ensuring that the user interface, the user touch point of your AI solutions are the best in class, they are the best in the world, so that as a clinician, I feel more engaged in using it and I feel more inclined in using the solutions. The last part is the budgetary constraints. Of course, all these innovation aspects, these implementations, these startup deployments at the enterprise level, they come in from the innovation or the IT budgets, which are always limited. Which sometimes it results that even if the solutions are pretty good, they don't get adopted due to these constraints. So over there, what you can do is you can look at creating, exploring creative models of commercialization. So an example would be like there is a company that has built a solution that works with the hospitals to help them save energy. Now, one of the ways of selling the solution would be that you ship the solution out, ask them to pay the capex and the opex. The other way is to say that you will not have to pay anything upfront. The amount of savings that you have each month, our cost will be amortized on that. So you are amortizing on the savings, which means that no upfront cost for the deployer, for the hospital, and this is a model which is working really well. So you have to look at creating models where the budgetary constraints don't become a deterrent for your deployment. So there is some part of the slides which I think it's going out of the, if you can zoom out a bit. Is it visible to everyone in this manner? Okay, perfect. The last thing is, and the most important one, I believe, is the data security and privacy. And it is, not so difficult to comply to this. The only problem is that it is, security and privacy is taken as an afterthought, mostly by the young entrepreneurial teams. When in fact you should be looking at security by design. Not only is that more effective, it also ensures that it costs you a lot lesser, because some of the times you need to go into rework when you're looking to file for getting your solution certified, and then there are any vulnerabilities that are found in the data security and the privacy domain. So whenever you start building any solution, since you are working in the healthcare domain, healthcare data is the most scrutinized one, and any healthcare institution, if they are unsure about where my data is going, how is my data being handled, modified, updated, no matter how revolutionary your solution is, they will never deploy it. They will never even touch that solution. So you have to be really careful right from the beginning that you comply with all those things. You comply with the data privacy regulations. There is the DPDP Act, which has come into play quite recently, and it will become the norm in the time to come. Ensure that you engage someone who is a specialist in this, and you comply with the laws of the land, and be forward in doing that. Even if it has not become an act, just ensure that you comply with whatever is going to become the law of the land, because then that also gives you the edge in comparison to other solution providers who would be trying to back that order from a hospital or from a medtech enterprise. So as I said, I will be talking about some of the case studies, and the sole objective of bringing these case studies is to let you know as what are the kind of innovations that are happening in the AI in healthcare space, because it's not that AI will change things in future. It is changing things currently. As we talk, AI is being leveraged not only in the urban areas but in the rural settings as well. And the so there are certain also the idea is that don't get bogged down by the details that might come in the case studies, or if there is a clinical term that you are not able to understand. The idea is that you should know how you can innovate and the kind of innovations that are out there in the market already. I'm working in this domain. I am a technologist just like you, but working with doctors, I try to pick things and learn new things each day. Quite a lot of things that I learned today as well. So yeah, these are 5 buckets in which I try to score, because there's so much happening in this field that it is difficult to compress all those things into one even an elongated session like this. So there are 5 different buckets that I have created over here, which is into clinical decisioning, patient engagement, point of care screening, critical care response, healthcare decisioning. And I have taken one case study of an actual deployment of AI that is happening on ground, and I will be talking about each of these one at a time. But before I do that, uh, I would like to stop over here, and I would like to ask if any of you has any questions, any thought, or forget that if you are trying to work on anything and you are facing a challenge, then I will like to stop for 2 seconds, wherein you can, or maybe what I can do is I will start off with one of the case studies. Meanwhile, if you have any questions or any thoughts or any challenges that you would like to bring in a public platform, please go ahead and do that. After this case study, I will come back to you if you have any questions till whatever I have spoken about till now. So this is the first case study. This is with like a cancer institute and research center based out of Delhi NCR, and cancer diagnosis is complex. It is takes a lot of time. It is tedious, and it is also critical. So what we did was that we found an AI solution that can you just move the images aside a bit? I think it might not be visible to everyone. Yeah, just keep it in that mode. Okay, because I will be talking through it. Okay. Or you can increase the zoom level down there. So yeah, sorry. So this is a cancer institute that we deployed an AI solution that works on histopathology slides, wherein you take a sample, you put that on a slide, you put it under a whole slide image scanner, which is similar to a microscope but much more than that. So we deployed an AI solution that uses image recognition and various other technologies to identify the cancerous cells within those slides and help the clinicians in triaging the normal cases. The idea, as I said, was again not to replace the thought of the clinician, but to help them in being more efficient. So this solution creates a detailed comprehensive diagnosis report by analyzing the histopathology data and then coming up with the insights and the diagnosis on the basis of that. This is a clinical grade, medical grade solution that is deployed and working now, and it is doing the clinical diagnosis for the patients as of now. So yeah, as I said, I'll stop over after this for 2 seconds. Any questions, any thoughts? I want to make that this session is interactive, and you will be able to find value only if there is a equal exchange of dialogue from both the sides. Anyone has any questions, any thoughts, any challenges? I'll wait for 2 seconds and then I'll proceed. So it's either everything is going all good or it's all bad. If there are no questions, either just these are the two possibilities that are there. Anyways, moving ahead.
Excuse me. Comment on the A advantage or identifying cervical cancer.
I'll do that. I have a slide just for that. So there you have it, sir. So, for my engineering friends who are like me, cervical cancer, and I think people know about breast cancer, oral cancer, but cervical cancer is, just to let you know, as far as I am informed, the second highest cause of oncology-related death in women, globally in India. I could be wrong factually, but it is a pretty, it has a very drastic impacts. Now, and also, one of the facts is, one of the reasons for this is that the screening, the testing for cervical cancer, there is a stigma around it. It is an intrusive test, and it is really difficult to get mass screening done due to the very same reasons. Of course, there are a lot of initiatives that are happening, but the scaling up is becoming a problem because again, as I said, there is a stigma that is associated with it. So here comes a solution, which is, as I said, it is a CE, FDA and CDSCO Class C certified, which means that it is a medical grade solution, which has a colposcope, which is nothing more like an imaging device for the high resolution imaging of the cervix area, and post that all the images that are captured, the high resolution images, are sent into an AI model, ingested by an AI model, and based on that it identifies, or it generates a risk score. I'm not saying that it will do the diagnosis, but it will do a risk score for the presence or the absence of any suspicious cases of cervical cancer. Now, as you would think, this is an image of the hospital in which it was deployed. So this is one of the AIIMS, by the way, and AIIMS conducts its screening camps in partnership with the PHCs. So this is deployed as of now, being used in conducting those screening camps to identify the suspicious cases. The data that I have from ground is where this was one of a few of the screening camps that were done in the state of Punjab. It was found out that 25% of all the women those were screened were found to be in the suspicious category, and then of course all of them were not so serious, but they needed some kind of a consultation, so they were referred, and then quite a lot of them, what I can easily say, lives saved by these solutions. So the idea is to look at solutions that can help change the patient outcomes. Okay. So Dr. Atul spoke about the patient-doctor interaction. I mean, was it able to address?
Right.
Thank you. So, if a doctor says right, it is problem solved for me. So, yeah. So, coming to the next use case, Dr. Atul had said about how he hates EMR because of this time that needs to be spent in recording the data, and also the quality of patient-doctor interaction that it affects. So this is a solution that we recently deployed. So this is with this ophthalmo chain based out of South India only, and this ophthalmo chain also conducts screening camps for detecting glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, cataract, and all those things. And one of the problems is that they face is the absence, or maybe whoever is there in terms of the healthcare workforce are sometimes not equipped to handle what comes on board. Of course, they do try to do it through the tele-ophthalmology way, but that also has some limitations. So the idea was to augment their workflow. So we came up with a generative AI based solution where it listens to the doctor-patient interaction, and on the basis of that, it not only documents everything, it also presents a treatment pathway. So based on whatever symptoms I have, based on whatever my family history is, the the demographic factors, any medications that are going on, it creates a clinical pathway which lists out what are the drugs that can be administered, what are the the treatment conditions, the tests and everything that need to be taken care of. And this is the doctor co-pilot. Apart from that, there is a patient facing app Now, what this patient-facing app does is that it allows the patient, once the patient reaches home and he or she has any questions or any queries with regards to their the treatment that's ongoing, then they can simply open their smartphone and they can start talking to this solution, this app in vernacular. We did it in Tamil for this particular deployment, but we have also done it in Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Gujarati, Marathi, of course English and Hindi as well. So that is the beauty of this solution. And just to let you know, since we are talking of healthcare solutions over here, all these solutions are medical grade. In fact, the solution which is based out of Gurugram, is ranked number 1 on Hugging Face, which looks at the AI model, and number 2 is DeepSeek, number 3 is OpenAI. So this solution ranks number 1 globally in terms of its accuracy to handle the medical applications, and it has been built right here in India. So the idea is to, when I said that that's what you should try to target. Built for India, built in India. I mean, make in India for the world. Because the thing is, whenever we are looking at solutions, we have to ensure we are looking at indigenous solutions, but those solutions will always be compared to what is being available in a US or an Israel or a Germany or a Singapore. We have to ensure that whatever you are building is world class. Of course, don't get bogged down that, go in a phase-wise manner. You start small and then scale things up, but then always have the vision that you want to compete with the best of the worlds. So this is again a solution which is for critical care. Now, and this solution was deployed in one of the district hospitals in their emergency care units. So emergency care units, as I don't know, you might not be aware because you're so young. It receives a lot of patients coming in due to cardiac ailments at wee hours, 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m. Because as I was hearing Dr. Shetty, he had mentioned that 2 to 4 a.m. is the window when a lot of cardiac related attacks or all those things happen for a certain region. And it is, I think, also called something as the dark window, black hour or something like that. So a lot of patients come in to the hospital during those hours. But the problem is, at that time, the doctors who are on duty are your junior residents, or maybe the freshers who are sometimes they feel ill-equipped in handling or interpreting the ECGs, and that is something which will come by experience. So what we did was, this is a solution which not only has like a clinical CDSCO class C. Class C means it's ICU grade ECG device. It also has an AI model that does the auto interpretation of the ECG signals. So this is being used in the emergency department, but this will soon be extended to the ambulatory care as well, because this is a really low cost and portable device, and it also has the AI capabilities. So here as well, we are saving lives because we are able to bring in the necessary interventions. This not only detects any, like it can detect tachycardia, bradycardia, myocardial infection. It can do that, but it can also give out the alerts in real time, so that a necessary action can be taken by the on-duty doctors, or they can talk to the senior doctors and take a timely action and save lives. So ultimately, as I said, it is about majorly doing two things in healthcare. Either you have to save lives or improve lives, or you have to make doctors' lives easier. You will anyways be able to make a huge impact if you are achieving these two, or even one of these two objectives. Now this is I think the last case study which I have, which is for general health insurance company. I was initially thinking whether to include that or not, but just to ensure that, just to let you know the diversity of the AI solutions that exist today, as which are being deployed as of now. This is for a health insurance company where there is an underwriting team that based on the risk score from the member, the individual, the potential policy holders to decide whether or not to give a health policy, which is based on a multitude of factors. There are medical reports, there is the proposal forms, and a whole lot of things. Risk factors with a particular area, occupation, and whole lot of family history, and different kind of structured and unstructured data, even handwritten notes for some of these interactions. So what we did was, the first thing is to digitize the unstructured data. There is a high volume of such data that exists, and digitize the structured and the unstructured data, and then an AI model that operates on top of that to create a risk score that can help the underwriters in taking an informed decision whether or not to go ahead with a particular policy. If at all to go ahead with a particular policy, look at customized premium, both on the positive side and the negative side as well. So this not only allows the insurance companies to operate more profitably, and which means that they can give far more claims, they can be far more efficient. This also ensures that the underwriters feel less, there is the burden which is on them is reduced due to the automation of the tedious tasks that they are performing. So that ends my case studies, and I would just like to conclude. And before I conclude, I would just like to bring this small story. This is one of the companies. This is a young team. They are fresh graduates, and this is our hardware lab based out of our innovation center at COE Gurugram, the initiative that I'm a part of. We have such labs in Bangalore, Vizag, Gandhinagar as well. And this is a team that is making a bionic arm for upper limb amputees. This is what you see is their functional prototype in their hand, wherein they started out from the scratch, and we brought them in touch with AIIMS Delhi to bring in the clinical expertise, and all these three are from the co-founding team over there with their functional the solution that they have at our lab. This is them after raising a funding of $10 million, and I think they have raised another round of 20 million as well at one of the leading media channels out there. Why I'm talking about this is that this is everyone who has reached there was at some time they had a prototype in their hand, right? So and opinion and advisory to all of you is that you should have such visions in your mind whenever you are starting out. So yeah, that's the end of it. Power is with you. Keep innovating. Thank you.